The top stories: Djibouti agrees to buy electric power from Ethiopia. And international community is urged from giving undue recognition to an outlaw like the TPLF. Hello and thank you for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us. The Ethiopian Embassy in the U.S. expressed dismay over a statement by the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum published on its website on 25th October 2022. It said it is saddening to see such an institution engaged in reckless, sensational claim of genocide in Ethiopia's Tigray region. The museum, it said, seems to take the usual mantra of genocide by the TPLF and its supporters, adding it finds the museum's choice to echo such narrative quite saddening. It reaffirmed commitment of the government to the upholding of human rights by facilitating joint investigation of whatever allegations during the war in Tigray by the Ethiopian Human Rights Council and the United Nations High Commission for Human Rights. But the process of the suspended repatriation of citizens living in Saudi Arabia in difficult conditions is about to begin. State Minister for Foreign Affairs, Burtukan Ayano, disclosed that the National Committee established to get the process of repatriation going is making preparations. Ayano said this while visiting the temporary shelter prepared for returnees. According to the State Minister, the government is taking practical steps to help citizens in trouble safely return to their country. The 16th Ethio-Djibouti Joint Ministerial Commission meeting concluded today. The joint ministerial meeting was held for 3 consecutive days, and the two countries were represented by a high-level delegation, which included several ministers. Meanwhile, Djibouti agreed to purchase electric power from Ethiopia. Shagao Yamata reports.
Ethiopia and Djibouti have cordial relations and long-standing friendship. The two countries have strong cooperation at the leadership level, people-to-people, and economic as well as in regional and international forums. The countries have been extensively promoting regional integration through the Ethio-Djibouti Railway, renewable energy, infrastructure, road, import and export trade. The people of the two countries share the same blood, language, religion and culture. As a result, such kind of joint Ethio-Djibouti ministerial meeting is one of the many mechanisms aimed at strengthening to further strategic partnership in all aspects of political, economic and social engagements. Ethiopia and Djibouti are playing a key role in bringing economic integration in the region. Ethiopia uses the Djibouti port in trade cooperation. The two countries have also enjoyed trade transport system for many years. Recently, Djibouti expressed its willingness to import wheat when Ethiopia begins to export to neighbor countries. The 16th Joint Ministerial Commission meeting, which was being carried out in Addis Ababa for 3 days, is concluded on Thursday. Demeqa Mekonnen, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Mohammed Ali Yusuf, Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of Djibouti, and other ministers from the two countries attended the closing session. In his concluding remarks, Demeqa Mekonnen said the deliberations were successful and productive as they were steered by the spirit of brotherhood, mutual trust and shared strategic interest. According to Mekonnen, the progress witnessed in the past years in forging strong economic ties between the two sisterly countries is based on the cooperation achieved in various political, economic, social and cultural sectors is indeed encouraging. Nevertheless, much work remains to be done to exploit the existing untapped opportunities and potential of the two countries for the mutual benefit and prosperity of the two people, he underlined. Mohammed Ali Yusuf, for his part, stressed that the 16th Joint Ministerial Commission meeting was yet another expression of the commitment of the two states to nurture the multifaceted cooperation existing between the two countries. The minister also urged the expedited implementation of agreements reached during the deliberations to further expand the ties between the two countries to a higher level. It is also noted that Djibouti agreed to purchase electric power from Ethiopia, which can more strengthen the bilateral ties of the two countries.
In a related development, Djiboutian ambassador to Ethiopia, Abdi Mohammed, said the two nations have shared vision towards achieving integration through multifaceted partnership. Talking to the Ethiopian news agency, the ambassador noted that the long-standing and historic bilateral relation between Ethiopia and Djibouti is unique. Haptamu Ashagre has the details.
Ethiopia and Djibouti have multifaceted partnership in advanced economic integration in railway, port, water, electricity, telecom, among others. Talking to Ethiopian news agency, Djiboutian ambassador to Ethiopia Abdi Mohammed said the bilateral relations of the two countries tirelessly working to bring significant benefits to the people of the two countries. According to the ambassador, the economic integration between the two countries serves and contributes to the improvement of economic growth and the well-being of the two countries. The ambassador added that the relationship between Ethiopia and Djibouti can serve as example and model for other countries of the region and beyond. This state of relation between the two countries is based on the political will and the enlightenment vision of the leaders of the two countries, Ambassador Mohammed said. He further stated that the joint Ethio-Djibouti ministerial meeting held every year in one of the many mechanisms aimed at strengthening the strategic partnership of the two countries in all aspects of political, economic and social engagements.
በልጆችሽ መኖርን መርጣለች ሳንለይሽ ፍቅርሽ በልባችን የሚኖር ማንም አይለየን አንቺ ከሞት በቀር ያያት የቅድማ ያታላቅ ቅርስ ኮራዴ ጋሻቸው ሲታወስ በቅኝ ያልተገዛሽ መሬታችን ነፃነት ነው ክብራችን ጀግንነታችን ወግና ዋሉ ያገራችን ያውዳመት የሰንበት ህብረታችን የክረምት የበጋ ባለጸጋ ኢትዮጵያ ኢትዮጵያ ለሚቷ ሸጋ ኢትዮጵያ ኢትዮጵያ ለሚቷ ሸጋ ኢትዮጵያ ኢትዮጵያ ለሚቷ ሸጋ
Although Ethiopia remains committed to finding a peaceful remedy to the two-year war in the north, its efforts have been frustrated by the West. Most of them want to keep the TPLF as a Trojan horse to advance their interests. Ethiopia, which only sent troops up north when provoked by the TPLF's brazen act of assaulting its federal army outpost, is sitting for negotiations even while enjoying the upper hand in the battle. However, the West is poking its nose in its internal affairs, violating its sovereignty by throwing uncalled for demands at its floor and polluting the spirit of a negotiation settlement. Despite 3 such attempted peace talks in the Seychelles, Djibouti, and now in Pretoria, South Africa, foreign powers happen to be there dictating the dialogue, even openly backing the TPLF. The following reportage by Daniel Kasaun sheds more light into it. Take a look.
Ethiopia's foreign policy advocates a win-win approach in a non-interference manner with the internal affairs of other countries. The same is what Ethiopia expects from others. But foreign powers like the United States of America and Britain have proven to be intruders when they pass the red line, which is the unity and sovereignty of Ethiopia. The Westerners are not only imposing their interests to Ethiopia, but to the nations of the continent and the other nations across the world. Realizing all their destructive moves, Africans are saying no more against foreign interventions.
External powers that purport to be supporting in the war against terror and whatever are actually complicit in perpetuating crisis. Time has come for us to challenge the approach which has been adopted to date to conflict management in Africa, by which old colonial powers continue to play lead roles even in UN operations.
Africa should tell Europe, America, Russia, China, please leave us alone. Let us resolve our problems. Question number one.
Are you really engaging in international development and cooperation? Is really human rights true? Does human rights in America even matter for the black?
Together united, we will never be defeated.
Some, with a colonial mindset, call our part of the world a jungle. We want to remind them about Adwa. We are the lions in the jungle. Our roar has silenced a colonial ambition. The time to dehumanize Africa has been long gone. Africa has awakened. The resources that have been exploited for ages are being used by Africans for Africa. We are building dams, big industries. Africans everywhere are now leading innovators. We as Africans and Ethiopians would like the world to know, to honor our choice, and we say, no more, no more, no more.
It's more than enough that both US and EU turned a blind eye to our people's subjugation, suffering, repression, under a minority tyranny, under TPLF dictatorship for 27 years.
You know, they take, when there is a press release by the TPLF, they take it at face value and they totally believe it. It's reported as a fact, but they don't report the other side of things. They don't look deeper into the questions about what is true, what is the real, truth behind things. And so there's really vital facts that are being left out of the story. And so when, Westerners read the New York Times or CNN or the BBC, they don't get the full facts. They only get one side. And so they don't know, about how the TPLF started the conflict. They can't even agree about how the war started.
By the definition of the American state, the American Constitution, a nation, a group of people that takes weapon against its government is definitely considered to be a terrorist organization. That's by definition. Right? This is how it's not only the Constitution, but some of the rules of the United States state that if a group of people take weapons against the local nation, that group is considered to be terrorist.
Long-term solution to resist foreign powers' intervention for Ethiopia and the continent would be upholding the ideals of the founding fathers of the Continental Organization, which is applying Pan-Africanism in its original intentions.
A legal expert says expressions such as government of Tigray or Tigrayan authorities are clear violations of the sovereignty of the country. The TPLF is an outlaw and, much worse, a designated terrorist still at large to plunge the country into endless chaos. Since the Tigray regional government expired back in June 2021 and no legal elections have taken place, we only have a rogue regime of thugs who are now in disarray. Some international organizations and Westerners continued putting diplomatic pressure on Ethiopia, recognizing the terrorist as mandated legal authority. Goshu Melliso takes it from here.
Article 56 of Ethiopian Constitution stipulated that a political party or coalition of political parties that has the greatest number of seats in the House of People's representatives shall form the executive and lead it. During its reign, the TPLF used the constitution to lead the country close to 3 decades. However, after the TPLF ousted from power by the reformist group, it claimed itself the state of Tigray or government of Tigray and undertaken election defying the federal government. Some international organizations like the UN and the West are working tirelessly to destabilize Ethiopia and propagating TPLF's propaganda. Legal experts say expressions such as government of Tigray or state of Tigray are threatening the sovereignty of Ethiopia.
United Nations does not recognize 11 Ethiopian regions. All 11 regions in Ethiopia are administered by Ethiopian Constitution and Ethiopian federal government. Ethiopia is the member and one of the founding members of the United Nations. However, some international organizations like the UN are attempting to recognize terrorist TPLF as a state violating this character and treating Ethiopia's sovereignty.
The Biden administration and some Western countries who are claiming to eradicate terrorist groups around the globe are supporting the terrorist TPLF to make relevant in Ethiopian politics. Instead, they continued putting diplomatic pressure on Ethiopia through recognizing terrorist designated TPLF.
UN Chief General Antonio Guterres and Linda Thomas Greenfield repeatedly placate terrorist designated TPLF by the Ethiopian parliament. They also failed to recognize its unspeakable atrocities committed in Afar and Amhara region. Rather, they are crying foul the Ethiopian government. In addition, United Nations and Biden administration called TPLF as State of Tigray or Tigray government. They are also attempting to twist the hands of Ethiopian government.
Attempting to recognize the outlawed group is unacceptable by any legal ground, the legal expert added.
EU repeatedly wrote some letters as State of Tigray or Government of Tigray, and the Ethiopian government expressed its concerns over the letter. Ethiopia is the founder of the African Union, not the outlawed TPLF. All concerns should be entertained by the Ethiopian government. UN and US are applying double standards on Ethiopia.
It is to be recalled that the Ethiopian government strongly reminded friends of Ethiopia and other countries to avoid actions against sovereignty of Ethiopia.
Ethiopia is set to share its Green Legacy Initiative, renewable energy and climate-resilient green economy experiences at the 27th United Nations Climate Change Conference to be held in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt from 6th to 18th November. Ethiopia Minister of Planning and Development Fitsum Asafa received Janet Rogan, British Ambassador of COP26 for Africa and the Middle East, in her office and exchanged views on climate change and Ethiopia's experiences in the field. In their discussion, the minister provided extensive explanation about the work that Ethiopia is doing to prevent climate change. According to Minister Fitsum, Ethiopia is ready to share its climate change prevention experiences and achievements to the world at the UNFCCC COP27, scheduled to be held in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. UK's COP26 Ambassador for Africa and the Middle East, Janet Rogan, on her part, said that Britain is keen to share its experiences in the field with Ethiopia. She also reaffirmed Britain's interest to press ahead with climate change prevention initiatives.
ደና መጣቹ ማጎ ብሔራዊ ፓርክ በጣም በተፈጥሮ ጸጋው ውብ የሆነችና በተራሮች የተከበበች መሃላ እንዲሁም ታንዛኒያ ግሮንጎሮ የምትባል የኢኮሎጂ ጥበቃ ቦታን የምትመስል ነው መሃላ ይሄ ውስጥ በዚህ ብሔራዊ ፓርክ ውስጥ እንግዲህ በኢትዮጵያ ካሉት አንጋፋ የተባለ ከፍተኛ ገቢ የሚሰበስብ እስከ 2.4 ሚሊዮን በአመት ገቢ የሚሰበስብ የቱሪስት መስህብ ዙሪያው በባህላዊ የታጀበ ማህበረሰብን ያቀፈ ነው።
ሰባንዳ አካባቢ ወደ 81 አካባቢ አጥቢ የዱር እንስሳት ዝርያዎች ነበሩ። ከነዛ ውስጥ ትላልቅ አጥቢ የዱር እንስሳት የሚባሉት ጎሽ፣ ዝሆን፣ ዲፋርሳ፣ ሌላ እነዚህ ዘጋበል የሆኑት አንበሳ፣ ነብር የመሳሰሉት አሉ። አሁን ላይ ከነዚህ ውስጥ የተወሰነ የዱር እንስሳት ዝርያዎች በተለያየ ምክንያት ከዚህ ከብሔራዊ ፓርኩ ጠፍተዋል።
In business news, Ethiopia Telecom, the state telecom provider, today announced the introduction of a system called telecloud. The system will enable organizations to access information on the database without having to go anywhere. CEO of the state-owned telecom giant, Frihua Tamru, disclosed that the service enables organizations to get the information they want from Ethiopian Telecom without having to build a data or information center. It was also stated that the service increases productivity with the integration of technology. The CEO said that the Ethiopian Telecom has started building a data center and renting it to organizations. Pakistani ambassador to Ethiopia, Shozab Abbas, said his government remains committed to deepen trade and investment ties with Ethiopia. Ambassador Abbas also said that there is an enabling environment to further strengthen the trade and investment cooperation areas that will also be replicated in various other fields. Kazaun Jani has this report.
Pakistan establishes bilateral relations with Ethiopia before 75 years. Islamabad, the Pakistan government has established diplomatic ties with Ethiopia, one of Africa's oldest and second most populated country. Ambassador Shozab Abbas said the long-standing ties between Ethiopia and Pakistan are conducive to creating strong trade and investment cooperation. Noting his government has been undertaking a wide range of activities in agriculture, trade and investment, among others.
Prime areas which we mutually have agreed to promote are number 1, agriculture, number 2, energy, number 3, trade and investment, and number 4, international cooperation. So in these 4 or 5 areas, which are very much on the list of my and your government's priority, are in place, and we are working on it very, very closely.
Reminding a strong historical relationship between our two countries, Ambassador Poonam did. Current leaders on enabling environment to further strengthen the trade and investment cooperation. Ambassador Abbas reaffirmed Pakistan and Ethiopia's commitment to further heighten trade and investment relations more than ever.
And I would love to inform you that the trade, which has been considered as the most important element between the two governments, two countries, has now gone up from 45 million US dollars to 65 million US dollars in a couple of years' time. I came here in 2020, and now this is 2022, end of 2022. And in these 2 years, this trade has been promoted a lot. And now, after the setup of your embassy in Islamabad, I believe this cooperation will further enhance.
According to him, more opportunities for cooperation areas will arise in various fields as Ethiopia's economy is structuring towards services.
And finally, from across Africa, the dismissal of South Sudan's Vice President Riek Machar from his party, the ruling Sudan People's Liberation Movement SPLM, continues to generate reactions. The SPLM Secretary for Political Affairs, Mobilization and Organization, Col Atem, is the latest to respond to the dismissal. Guya Hinsane has more from Africa News.
Machar, along with Pagan Aom, formerly senior member of the party, were dismissed after both established breakaway parties, the SPLM and the real SPLM, respectively. Cannot be a member in SPLM and also a chairman of another party called SPLM-IO. It's impossible, says Atem.
What brought us up to this movement is that Riek Machar and Pagan Aom, they were holding a very senior position, that they were elected. That is why Political Bureau could not dismiss them. Political Bureau have come up with a resolution, a recommendation to National Liberation Council to dismiss them. You cannot be a member here in the SPLM, and you are the chairman of another party called SPLM-IO. It is impossible.
The world's youngest nation has lurched forward crisis to crisis since it proclaimed its independence from Sudan in July 2011, and it's held together by a fragile unity government between historic foes President Salva Kiir and Machar. Highlighting the continued friction between the two men, a meeting chaired by Kiir last week ousted Machar from the government of Sudan People Liberation Movement. Almost 400,000 people died in the civil war before Salva Kiir and Machar signed a peace deal in 2018 and formed a unity government. Since then, the country has battled flooding, hunger, violence, and political bickering as the promise of the peace agreement have failed to materialize.
You're watching Addis News Hour. Here's a reminder of the stories making headlines. Djibouti agrees to buy electric power from Ethiopia. And international community is urged from giving undue recognition to an outlaw like the TPLF. That's all we had for now. I'm Tabitha John. Many thanks for watching. Have a good night and take care.